Osiris.
Hey, this is Chris Pandolfi from the infamous String Dusters, and this podcast is part of the Osiris podcast family. Osiris is a growing community of music and culture podcasts connecting music fans with conversation, commentary, and music. Osiris works in partnership with Relics. Check them out for all kinds of new music, news, and information.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into GuitarCast. I'm your host, Andy Keithley. This is episode 21 with Mandolinist Scott Gates from the Salty Sweets and the Get Down Boys. This is us jamming in the background. It's pretty nice, isn't it? We have 2 new reviews on Apple Podcasts. Southern Songs and Stories says, not a guitar player, but I find your conversations about guitar engaging. They speak to the mystery of what makes music so unifying, so necessary to us all. And the D&D podcast says, great stuff. This podcast has some great conversations with a bunch of very underrated musicians who are making it in the music world. I love it. Outstanding work. So thanks for those 5-star ratings and reviews. Another way to support the show is to fill out the Osiris Listeners Survey. As the Osiris Network grows, we want to learn a little bit more about you and what you want to hear more of in our podcasts. If you take the survey, you'll be entered to win one of 2 prizes. You could win an LP of Fish's Rift album signed by Fish lyricist Tom Marshall, or a $100 Amazon gift card. I'd take the vinyl. So click the link in the show notes or go to osirispod.com to take the Osiris Listener Survey. Also, just a reminder, I'm going to be at this year's Con of Thrones presenting on the Sounds of Westeros panel. Con of Thrones is the largest ever convention for fans of Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire. We're going to be digging into the lyrics of George R.R. Martin and the music of Ramin Djawadi from the show. So come check out that panel if you're going to be in Dallas for Con of Thrones. You can get tickets and schedule info at conofthrones.net. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at GuitarCastPod. And don't forget to check out guitarcast.net and osirispod.com. Here comes episode 21 with Scott Gates. Welcome to the GuitarCast, everybody. Today our guest is Mandolinist Scott Gates. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing fantastic.
The first question that we like to ask here on a GuitarCast, and I think I might know the answer to this, what was the last gig you played?
See, we just got back from Big Sur. Okay, so it was the Coffee Gallery with the Salty Sweets.
Nice.
Yeah.
Coffee Gallery, that's in Altadena?
Yeah, that's right. It's in Altadena. It's a listening room in the back of a coffee house. And the coffee house has changed hands quite a bit, but the original proprietor of the Ice House runs the back room. And
Cool.
He's just been pumping out little gigs ever since.
And the Sweets have played there a lot.
Oh, yeah, that's our home.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Salty Sweets, that's your band, has been your band for a while now, right?
Oh, yeah. 10 years?
Right.
Something like that?
Yeah, I remember, Scott and I have played probably 1,000 gigs together over, 10 years or so. And I remember the first time that I met you, you were like probably 14.
Sounds right.
And I was probably at a bluegrass festival somewhere in California.
Yeah.
And
Huck Finn, maybe?
Huck Finn, or one of the dozen bluegrass festivals around. And I was there with the Get Down Boys, and I think we just met jamming and late night jamming in the campgrounds.
Probably. I'm in the middle of that for sure.
Yeah, and we were quite impressed with your mandolin playing and singing even back then.
Guys. Aw.
But I think you were with the Sweets even back then.
Definitely.
That was probably the first kind of first band that we associated you with. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the Sweets.
Well, it's an indie band, and that's everything from the feel of stuff like Elliott Smith to Nico Case. It's comprised of mainly the core is myself playing mandolin and singing, and Chuck Hales, who is a jazz classical bassist from Utah. He lived in Austin, Texas for a while and moved out to California. I met him as soon as he moved out, so it's been probably 12 years I've known that dude. And he plays upright bass and sings as well. And Chelsea Williams is playing guitar and mostly rhythm guitar and sings, and all three of us write.
Cool.
So it's mostly an original indie band, and we cover stuff that we like, anything from Oingo Boingo to Fred Cockrum, Tommy Jarrell, really old 1800s kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the idea is that, Chelsea's this singer-songwriter that's kind of has a pop thing, and Chuck is this classical jazz bassist that's kind of has a mind of a psychedelic explosion, and then I kind of bring the bluegrass thing to it.
Yeah.
So that's the hope anyway.
Yeah. So it's a string band, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like an avant-garde string band because it's very hard to classify the styles that the Salty Sweets play.
Yeah, I feel like Americana is even too specified. I think indie is just the way to put it, because we are an independent band, completely independent.
Yeah.
Built everything independently.
Cool. And somewhere along the line, somewhere back then, we started hiring you on for Get Down Boys gigs.
Yeah.
Right.
Hired gun. Yeah. Mercenary.
And then eventually you became a permanent member of the band.
Yeah.
What are the Get Down Boys up to? I haven't talked to. Well, that's not true. I had Mark Cassidy on the podcast a few weeks ago.
I listened to that a couple days ago.
Yeah,
it was good.
It was a good one.
He killed it. He's got that voice for radio.
Yes. Yeah.
He's got the deep voice.
So what are the Get Down Boys up to nowadays?
I think the most exciting thing that we're doing right now is we're going to go play the Telluride band concert.
Cool.
Or sorry, competition.
Right.
So yeah, we're heading to Telluride to play the band competition. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
Yeah.
I hope that goes well. We were kind of looking into the other bands that had won, and we're thinking we have a good shot.
By a mile, yeah.
I think we have a good shot. Other than that, it's been a lot of writing. There's a lot of new writing coming out, and I think we have a good chance at really doing something. We have this weird idea too. We've been working with our buddy John Frizzell, and we have this weird idea of recording the entire Peanuts Christmas album with bluegrass
Nice.
band, which is kind of it's one of those things that like it'd be fun to kind of record and put out and see what happens.
Absolutely. That's a classic. That's just one of the only listenable Christmas albums out there. And that'd be pretty cool to hear with a bluegrass instrumentation.
Have you heard Bob Dylan's Christmas album?
No. Should I?
Oh yeah, it's all traditional, So you got the bells, you got
wow.
It all comes in with violins and like da 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 da. Then he's hark the herald.
Nice.
It's just like Tom Waits meets like
That's
Dean
great.
Martin. It's hilarious.
Cool. I'm actually playing your guitar that you brought in today.
Yeah.
Tell me about this guitar.
Well, it is called Guitar Cast, so I
That's
figured
right.
I'd bring it in. So I was looking for a guitar for a while. Israel has been messing with this guitar, and I just wasn't happy, and I needed my own. I had a Blue Ridge, a BR-140 that started to collapse on me, or implode. Really, the bridge was starting to lift off the top, and it was one of those things that we got it for like $200, and we didn't want to fix it, so. It would be more expensive to fix it. So I was looking for a guitar forever, couldn't find anything. And my buddy Paul Davis, you probably remember him. He's had this guitar sitting in his closet, and I was griping to him over it on the phone. And he's like, I have this Martin. You remember my Martin? Yeah. He's like, it's really woofy. It's a good band guitar. You might want to come check it out. So we roll in to Boulder Creek in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and it's sitting in this wet fucking closet, and it's like in this ratty case. We pull it out, and after taking it to a few festivals and taking it around to a few people, it turns out it's a 1983 Martin D41V. And the V stands for vintage line. So they called up these builders from the 40s to come build a few of these guitars. And they called it the vintage line. So this is kind of 40s, but it hasn't had enough time to open up, but it's a great cut of wood. It's basically a D28 with better wood.
Yeah.
And it's a D45 with way less bling. And it's a throwback to the herringbone. So you have the herringbone around edge of the guitar.
Yeah.
Around the edge of the
That's
face.
nice.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's one of those things. It's like you find some of the best instruments that way. It's like been sitting in somebody's closet. That's,
Yeah.
it's always a good sign.
It makes you wonder what's all out there sitting in somebody's closet right now, or somebody's garage where they, got some priceless instrument that will never see the light of day.
Well, here. Let me divert to mandolins real quick too. So on top of this, I've heard this story where this dude's in New York, right? And he's checking out pawn shops. He's kind of a pawn freak, and he's a bluegrass dude. And he knows his mandolins. And he walks into a pawn shop in Brooklyn, I think, and there's a mandolin on the wall. And he gets closer and closer to it, and he's like, "That looks like a Gibson. It's definitely an F5." He gets closer. That looks like an old Gibson. And he nonchalantly, asks the dude to come over and says, "Hey, can you pluck that off the wall for me? Let me just take a look at it. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I kind of want it. It looks pretty. Might go on my wall." And he takes a look at it and he looks inside. Not only is it a Lloyd Loar, it's a signed Lloyd Loar.
Wow.
And it's pre-fern. So it's got that vase at the top, and his hand starts shaking and he goes, "Hey, so, how much do you want for this piece of shit?" He goes, "Well, I guess $100 would be good."
Wow.
And the dude had the balls to talk him down to $50.
Wow, nice.
And then the dude sold it. This is a
Yeah.
friend of David Nadish's. It's the dude sold it and put a down payment on a house, bought an RV.
I guess if you'll give yourself away if you say $100, I'll take it, no problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Then he's gonna think something's up, so you almost have to talk him down. Mm-hmm. That's
It's
crazy.
a hell of a story.
Yeah.
I don't remember much from my childhood, but that's definitely one of them that
Yeah.
comes along.
Yeah. So when did you get into like bluegrass and mandolin and going to these festivals and stuff? Pretty early.
Started that story is my grandfather's from Sicily, and he brought the mandolin to the family gatherings. To every time there was a Thanksgiving or a party or a Christmas, anything like that, he pulled out the mandolin, and it was a family of musicians. But it was kind of scattershot. My uncle Scott, who's my namesake, played bass for Three Dog Night, for example, and Tiffany.
Wow.
That kind of era of like 80s music. And then my uncle Bruce was kind of a studio musician kind of guy. So it was a little all over the place, and they would just kind of play rhythm to my grandfather, who would sit there and play through the lead on some of the pop tunes from like the 20s to the 40s and some old Italian numbers. And he wrote a few. So the mandolin was pretty prevalent right there. And then I wanted to get into it. I've been playing piano since I was 3 years old. It's been my whole life. My parents got me on it. And trying to follow the mandolin in California gets you to people who play bluegrass.
Right.
So I'm trying to follow that. I'm 7 years old, and I'm picking up the mandolin for the first time, and finding a teacher. The first thing they teach you is something like Blackberry Blossom.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's a scale.
Yep.
It's just a more fun to listen to scale. So we followed that, and then about 10 minutes from where I lived out in the Mojave Desert, they had the Huck Finn Jubilee, which is where I think we met.
Yeah.
Probably. Again, I don't remember much because you and I did a lot of partying together.
Yes, we did. Yeah. Memories are a little hazy from back in those days.
Yeah.
So bluegrass was your first kind of introduction to the instrument.
I think so. Yeah, everything was so classical coming from piano. So I would say that the mandolin and singing eventually is what. I mean, I fell in love with bluegrass right away,
right.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
And it's more of a community and a philosophy than it is a style of music, I think.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how jazz is more of a philosophy than anything.
Right.
So in the same way.
Yeah, I don't think most people realize that California is like the second, maybe third biggest bluegrass region after like Appalachia and like maybe the Northeast.
As far as region, yes.
Yeah, and when you think bluegrass, a lot of people don't think California necessarily, but it's huge. I mean, it's huge. Mostly up north of L.A. It makes its way into L.A. from time to time. But
yeah, you're looking at it.
Right,
It's doing me, man.
I know all about that.
Bluegrass Siberia.
But like, man, I mean, for years we did festivals up and down the state, and people came out, and the jams were big, and there was just young kids and all ages, and like
Oh yeah.
it was a pretty big deal, and it kind of has its own. In some ways, it's more traditional than back east because you have this progressive bluegrass thing happening back east, which is very cool, and it's very impressive to watch.
Right.
The kind of more progressive sound. Whereas all the people I met in the California bluegrass world were like die-hard, prototype, Bill Monroe, early 50s bluegrass. I mean, like that's the name of the game in a lot of these.
Yeah, 40s to 50s.
Yeah.
There are, and this is a difference I've been. Well, first let me touch on the fact that the South is so progressive now.
Yeah.
And the California is so traditionalist. It used to be flipped.
Right.
You know, obviously it
Sure.
came from the South, but this Nash Vegas sound that's come out of the South has, I mean, it's gone from here's like your standard bluegrass chop, right?
Yeah.
It's like a bell and it's hardcore and it's a little more bop,
Right.
bop. It's like a snare drum, right? And then this is something that you'll hear out of the South.
Yeah.
And then if there's no sound, it sounds like a.
Right.
It's like it's more of like you're chopping wood or something. It's completely changed. It's a much thinner, more polished sound in the South. And out here, where you'll hear a run in the South, like and out here, you're gonna hear.
Yeah.
You know, they're gonna hammer the hell out of this thing.
Right.
So it's funny how it's switched around because as I know you've talked about Tony Rice on this podcast.
Oh yeah.
So as Tony Rice came out of California and was playing a progressive style.
Yeah.
You know?
Like in the 70s, it was, and Ricky Skaggs lived out here too at that time. And you have like Clarence White, and California was definitely the home of bluegrass for a time.
Hell yeah. It's and as far as associations too, you're mentioning the regions,
Right?
You know, per capita, a place like North Carolina has way more banjo players than any other state.
Sure.
But as far as associations, the International Bluegrass Music Association puts on a huge convention and festival and concert series. Started in Louisville, moved to Nashville, and now it's in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And the California Bluegrass Association is the only association with its own floor on the hotel.
Right.
Everything else has their own room or their own conference room.
Yeah, when
But
we
this
went
is
to
an entire
IBMA a few years ago, we were at IBMA, and we were like ambassadors from California, and the California crew there like helped us out, got us some showcases, and like put us up and stuff like that. And I couldn't believe just how much of representation California had over there. And there are probably
huge, yeah.
there's a number of bluegrass associations in California, all up and down the state.
Yeah, it's split up into it's regional within California for sure.
Yeah, but it's I mean, man, I first got into bluegrass in Boston, but right as I was leaving Boston, so I kind of caught the bug, and then like a year later, I was living in California. So right when I was like at the prime of my excitement for bluegrass, I was here in California and going to these jams and to the festivals and stuff. And so it wasn't spoiled for me yet. Like it was still new and very fun, and like I just remember really getting into the traditional aspect of it, because I feel like I was a little nervous and a little like scared of the progressive players, because in New England there's all these monster players that a lot of them got into bluegrass after a jazz background or like a gypsy background.
So it sounds like a squirrel stuck in a piano.
Yeah, exactly. It's like intimidating, man,
Yeah.
Whereas I came out here and everyone's like, no, you're playing too much. You got to play a little less, and you gotta go listen. Yeah, play the melody and go listen to some 40s and 50s, Bill Monroe. And
Yeah, that's the number one mantra from out here, man, is start at the beginning and then move forward.
Yeah.
A lot of people, which is great that you start somewhere like I know a woman that started at the Steel Drivers, You know, she was into pop country, straight ahead,
Right.
like radio country.
Yeah.
And then, if you want to even call it that, and then it slowly moved backwards to the Steel Drivers, Chris Stapleton. And then you start getting into things like Balsam Range, Special Consensus.
Yeah.
And then you start moving backwards to things like Larry Sparks.
Yeah.
And that's where you're like, boom, you know?
Yeah.
And then go backwards from there. And he played with Ralph Stanley, who was the first recorded bluegrass, and then back to as far as an album. And then you get into, you know, Flat and Scruggs and Bill Monroe. And that's it. That's all you need.
Yep.
Right there. Stanley Brothers, Flat and Scruggs, Bill Monroe.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I took that advice and I started at the beginning, but I never really left. I never really got out of that early stuff. Like for me, I consider like the Tony Rice Unit to be one of the new bluegrass bands. You know,
That's awesome.
I don't know. A lot of the actual new stuff, I can't get behind a lot of it, man. It's too poppy and
Oh, of course, yeah.
it's
No, they're
just
trying
a
to sell
little
it.
too. It's not rugged enough for me. It's not
Right.
like. It's part of the appeal of bluegrass is that it's not polished and it's not. You know, opera
Well, it's real.
in a way. Yeah,
It's real, man. It always has sung and reflected the predicament of the entire human experience.
Yeah.
Love, jealousy, and
Right.
death, and war, and I mean everything you can think of that sucks and is awesome about being a human is
Bluegrass has got a
bluegrass
song
will
about
cover
it.
it.
Sure.
Yeah, in a really raw way.
Support for this podcast comes from Zuri Food, all natural, all human grade dog food, offering 4 different diets to optimize nutrition for your pup, and now 2 different kinds of dog treats as well. Visit www.zurifood.com today to order yours because pups are people too.
Those are the building blocks of bluegrass.
exactly.
Old time and blues, the Appalachian grass and the blues from the farms.
Yeah. So, what do you say? Let's play a little old time. Let's do Lost Girl.
Yeah. So I want to talk about this before we get into
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
a little bit. So the melody is going to accentuate different harmonies that the rhythm and the chord structure does not imply whatsoever. The rhythm and the chord structure are going to be 1-4-1-5-1 pretty much the whole time. There's a little change at the end of the B part, but otherwise it's as straight ahead. It's like Bluegrass 4 number 2. You know, it's like the most straight ahead idea of bluegrass, or at least this type of music where bluegrass came from. And the melody is going to go to places like, can you play that first chord? That's making a G6 right there. And then the next chord is going to be it's over 4. It's a C major 7. These dudes back in the late 1800s up in the mountains were playing jazz in a way without realizing it.
Yeah.
You know, they were just like, that sounds pretty.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Pretty sounding.
And not all of the songs are this intricate or this impressive, but a lot of them are. Yeah. And then it's a G. So just listen for that. This melody is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm not really going to stray too much from it. Now. that don't turn you on, you ain't got a switch.
Yeah, man. Lost Girl. Yeah, so tell me about this mandolin.
It is a JR 158. That's the model number from Mr. Michael Lewis. Yeah, he's a builder out of Grass Valley, California, so it's a Lewis Mando. It's built in 2002. It's got a Engelmann spruce top and a beautiful one-piece maple back. It is a loud motherfucker of a mandolin.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of power. I've had to learn how to try to temper it, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to not want to just go for it, you know? It
Sure.
feels so good. It fills me up. Maybe it's a little self-indulgent, but, you know, who cares? Yeah, this mandolin has done me well. This is priceless to me. This is one of those things that I'll never be... the way I look at this mandolin is I'll never be penniless and I'll never be homeless. I'll always have a place to go. I'll always have money to make because of this thing.
Sure.
And I'll never be bereft of some sort of soul because of it, you know?
Yeah.
Like this is the instrument.
Yeah, so you mentioned like making money. Other than doing the gigs, obviously, playing with bands, you do a lot of busking.
Yeah, that's been a huge part of finding my voice and my own sound and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, busking, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is, basically playing in a crowded area, put your case open or hat, whatever, and people will listen. And if you're any good, you'll get some money. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people who aren't very good, I see making money too.
Well, of course. It's kind of like at the very least, people will pass by, and for people that are just learning or that are a little weird in the head or something, they'll give money because like, hey, at least they're doing something. They're not just like standing there with a sign. They're not begging.
Sure.
It's not begging. It's not panhandling. It's busking it has a specific name because you are doing something.
Yeah, you're
doing
performing.
Something. You're trying to give something to the world. Yeah.
I think that because I've done my fair share of busking too, and it's cool to see people's reactions. And I think that's because people are hearing music and they're not primed to hear me. They don't get in a car and go to a concert and say, I'm going to go hear music tonight.
Oh, yeah.
They're just walking to the store or they're walking down the street, and all of a sudden there's this music and it's getting louder as they're getting closer. And all of a sudden you're hitting somebody at a time when that's the last thing on their mind.
Oh, man. Oh, you get me fired up.
Yeah. Oh. And that's what makes it kind of cool and special. And, I've seen some people, you really just put a huge smile on a lot of faces when you're out playing. And I'm partial to bluegrass, of course, but I always want to hear bluegrass on the street, man. That's some of the best. Some of the best players are out there doing their thing on the promenade or wherever.
And so I grew up busking in Santa Cruz. Yeah. So I was living at that buddy's house in Boulder Creek that I got this guitar from, and I would just take the bus down the 9 highway and busk all day. And the way I think about it, I mean, I do it out here still. I do it anytime I'm free. It's a paid rehearsal. You can think of it that way. You make good money doing it. It's anywhere from $30 an hour to, especially if you're selling CDs, it could be $250 an hour. It depends on where you're at and what time of day and what time of year. But you can do it in front of any grocery stores, whatever you want. But in Santa Cruz, the way I thought of it, and this is going back to your, this is pertinent to what we were saying.
Yeah.
The way I think of it is this street is a vein, and all these people are blood cells, and it's my job to create a clot. So my favorite thing to do would be to set up, get going. I really like using the mandolin because it's another thing that grabs people out of their routine. You're trying to snap people out of their routine. So I would do relatively, not flashy songs, but something that's high-pitched, fast, fun to listen to, get people in the mood. People will stop and start listening, start filming, start tipping, and then you can snap people out just by noticing that there's people standing there. So once you start a little crowd, a bigger crowd will form. My favorite thing to do would be to grab this huge crowd, get a huge one going, playing a bunch of fun stuff, and then hit him with something really heavy and sad, and my whole what I wanted to do was make people cry in public.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because that's huge. It's a huge win
because again, they're not primed. It's like a sneak you're like sneaking emotions on people in a time where they're not ready to hear it. I think it's awesome, you know.
I think Sun Tzu had a book on busking.
Yeah, right. Cool. Well, let's play some more music, huh?
Yeah.
Let's do The Prettiest Girl I Ever Did See. This is an original of mine that we used to play with the Get Down Boys once upon a time.
Yeah.
Speaking of old time, I went on a trip. I think we went to, we were coming back from Colorado, or we were on some tour, and the old time thing really grabbed me, and I was like, man, I need to learn more old time songs. And I also thought, I need to write some old time, write some songs that could be written 150 years ago. You know?
Yeah, make it fresh. That's kind of my goal.
And this kind of came out of that. So there's it's not like a verse chorus type of thing. There's just verse after verse after verse after verse. It's very simple chords, and the melody is relatively straightforward. So this is my take on a modern old time song, Prettiest Girl I Ever Did See.
Yeah.
Walk with me. She hopped and I hollered and a 1, 2, 3, the prettiest girl I ever did see. Well, the prettiest girl I ever did see. Asked her if she'd sing with me. She kissed me 'neath the cherry tree. The prettiest girl I ever did see. Yeah. Up a mug and cut up a rug, the prettiest girl I ever did see. Well, the prettiest girl I ever did see. I asked her if she'd talk with me. She smiled and I said, yes indeed, the prettiest girl I ever did see. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds great, man.
Gets me fired up. See, this is the kind of thing. This is a great example of old time because it's so meditative, and that's why it's repeating those melodies.
Yeah.
Because the bluegrass thing is a very much like modern kind of song structure. You know, verse, chorus, solo, verse,
Right.
chorus, solo,
Yeah.
and this is just like verse, melody, verse, melody, verse, melody.
Yeah.
It's you're supposed to kind of nerd out on it. Also, I don't care if you put this in here or not, but I'm gonna call you down on this. She kissed me 'neath the cherry tree. You dog! Now, if that doesn't turn you on, now you really don't have a switch. You are switchless if that doesn't turn you on.
I remember
Kiss beneath the cherry tree. I know what you mean.
when I. What are you talking about, man? There's a tree,
Yeah. Oh, sure.
and you know. Well, that's another thing I wanted to capture. You know, like
Trying to wax poetic.
these songs. You know, long before rock and roll was like tongue in cheek, dropping sex references in songs.
Oh, yeah.
Long before that, bluegrass was definitely doing that.
Oh yeah,
okay?
it was tongue and taint.
It's all over there. Man. It's all so I did not want to shy away from that, and I really that line jumped out at me too. You know.
There's a great song called "Walking the Dog."
Yeah, hell
It's
yeah.
a Webb Pierce tune originally, which is kind of this old country. You can compare him to somebody like Ray Price, Buck Owens, maybe. I mean, around that era, anyway. And I had been singing this song. It's a great bluegrass tune. Bluegrass people covered it. Jimmy Martin's, I think, the first one to cover it. Kind of this like 1.5 generation
Yeah.
of bluegrass.
Yeah, exactly.
And he. So he would play it, and it was a song that went around. It was an easy progression. It was really fun to listen to. It's bouncy. I'm walking the dog. I'm feeling blue. I'm walking the dog. Yeah. So I'm thinking. I ain't thinking about you. I'm full of pep. No worry, no how. I'm walking the dog all over the town. So it's like such an easy life since the day I left you, right? So I'm thinking, okay, like he's single, he's fresh, he just left the relationship, and he's walking his dog, and that's great. And I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm not thinking anything of it until I swear to God, I'm singing this song for like 15 years, 10,
Yeah.
15 years. And
Then it dawns on you.
One day it dawns on me, and there's this one line that goes, "I'm walking the dog, all the law will allow." And I'm like, all the law will allow. So this dude's walking. Where is it
Walking
illegal to
his
walk your dog?
dog.
Oh, oh, the little dog.
Got it.
His little dog.
Wiener dog.
Yeah, wiener dog. Okay, walking the dachshund.
Yeah. Let's do "Walking the Dog" and then we'll do that Bill Monroe tune.
Oh, we can go into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it?
We're gonna do
the same key or?
Yeah, it's in the same key and it's the same chords too. So it'll be
We'll
a
figure it
medley
out.
of we'll play "Walking the Dog" and then I'll hop into this Bill Monroe tune. 1, 2. I'm walking the dog, I ain't feeling blue. I'm walking the dog, I ain't thinking about you. I'm a carefree lad, no worry, no how. I've been walking the dog, and I'm painting the town. Such an easy life I never knew until the day that I left you. I'm a carefree lad, no worry, no how. I've been walking the dog all over the town. I'm full of pep, I just can't grow. I got a one-track mind, so I've been told that I'm fancy free. No worry, no how. I've been walking the dog. Oh, the law will allow such an easy life I never knew until the day that I left you. I'm a carefree lad, haven't seen the light. I've been walking the dog all day and all night. Stay away from me, you're causing me trouble. It's been this way ever since the start. Go
man. Getting up there.
I'm trying to, man. It's we edited it out, but Andy punched me in the nuts for that one.
That's right. Well, hey, Scott, thanks for being on the show, man.
Thank you.
Hope you had a good time.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'm a big fan of podcasts, and I'm a big fan of this one now. Anything on the Osiris Network, for sure.
That's right. There you go. All right. Well, thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time. This episode was produced, hosted, and edited by me, Andy Keithley. Thanks to our sponsor, ZuriFood.com, and thanks to RJB and Tom Marshall and everyone else over at the Osiris Network. Thanks for tuning in to GuitarCast with Andy Keithley. See y'all.
Osiris.